As you understand it, to whom are we responsible for the shape of our lives? Who do we answer to?
I think if I, would have tried to provide a response to that from my Hindu tradition, I would have to start, Matt, by, what is a widespread acknowledgement across Hindu traditions, as I would say, a sort of a core theological affirmation within the Hindu tradition that everything originates from the divine. The divine is clearly described in all of our traditions as that from whom or that from which everything has come, by which everything is sustained, and to which everything returns. It's the ground of all existence, the ground of all reality. For a Hindu, one has to live one's life in some profound acknowledgement of this divine source, because of whom or without whom we are not. Because that sustaining is a continuous act on the part of the divine. Without that continuous sustenance, we do not exist. But I would then add that, when I contemplate or I look at the Hindu sacred texts, what I see is that the divine brings forth everything out of divine fullness, as divine self-expression. Life is described in our tradition as a great gift. It is a great gift to know that one and to know each other. But that gift also comes with a certain order in the universe, a certain, what I would describe as a certain moral order. So we are invited by the divine, if I would use those terms, to the celebration of existence, the celebration of life, because it's divine, creation is divine celebration. But at the same time, it is not a celebration without responsibilities, without obligations on our part. So there is a moral order, there is a moral law. And that's what we speak of in the Hindu tradition. People, of course, have different interpretations, but all of our traditions speak in one way or another about the law of karma. And so when we speak about responsibility, I would put it in this way. I would say, we are invited to a certain way of being by God, a certain way that reflects the truth of the divine, the truth of reality, but we do so with cognizance of this moral order. So let me give you an example of what I mean and what it would mean to me. So the divine exists equally in everyone. That's a fundamental Hindu teaching. And therefore I should regard and revere everyone as I regard and revere my own self. I should value others as I value myself. And but if I don't, if I am unjust to others, if I am cruel, if I ill-treat others, then there are consequences. There are personal consequences, of course. There are also social consequences. So to be fundamentally responsible to the divine is to also be fundamentally responsible and cognizant of that moral order, that moral law in which we live. And at the same time, if I express my responsibility to the divine and the moral order of the universe by love, by generosity, by compassion, which truly reflects the ultimate nature of the divine and the fundamental nature of reality, then there is greater joy in myself, and I contribute to greater joy and delight in the community in which I live, because my life values are now in harmony with the source of life itself. And I flourish, and the community in which I exist also flourishes. So that is the larger context in which I would speak about responsibility. But one last point that is In the most ancient texts, the human person is consistently described from birth itself as, the Sanskrit word that is used is rina, which means to live indebted. We're born into owing others. We are in debt. In other words, what it means is that we cannot be fully human outside of the community of the universe and other living beings. The whole idea of interdependent existence is really fundamental to the Hindu tradition. But the Hindu tradition speaks of responsibilities of this interdependent condition. Not only acknowledging it, but also asks the question, if we truly live in this interdependent reality, what are our responsibilities to each other? Because I receive, I should give. Not because I fear, but because that's the way to the prosperity and flourishing of a human community. So we find in a text like the Bhagavad Gita, where the teacher Krishna says, one who receives from others, one who receives from the universe without the responsibility, feeling the responsibility of giving back, is a thief. You take without giving. So we are invited into a way of living in which we are cognizant of our responsibility. We are receivers, we can't help it. That's a very natural condition of human existence. But we could choose to be givers or not. And we have a responsibility to reciprocate receiving by giving.
So we answer to God. Part of how God has set up the world means that our responsibility to God also entails our responsibilities to one another, because God has put us fundamentally in relationship with one another.
Yes. Okay. That's a good crisp summary of what I said in many ways. And to be responsible to God is also to be cognizant of the moral order, the moral law, which permeates the universe. And I should say that responsibility, Matt, as I'm sure you infer from what I have said, is not an anthropocentric responsibility. It extends to the whole community of life.